As you guys know, at RedStone Productions, we are a very big fan of analog gear. But when it comes down to quick turnout, when you have projects that need to move forward, and with a very limited budget, there's no better way than working inside the box. So when that's the case, the SSL UF8, it's sort of like a God-given. Hi guys, and welcome back to RedStone Productions. Today we are reviewing the SSL UF8, their 8 channels motorized fader controller. It supports both HUI and Mackie Control Universal, which basically means you can run any DAW on it. It features 8 flying faders, but you can actually add on because you can daisy chain up to 4 units, basically giving you hands-on 32 flying faders in front of you. On top of this, you also have 2 foot switch outputs on the back, which allows you to basically customize whatever you want with the use of any pedal out there. Something also very unique about this control surface, besides the very sturdy metal quality, it's a complete metal housing, so it feels very, very solid in hands. You can also plug your keyboard straight into it. In fact, your OS, no matter if you're running Windows or Mac OS, will recognize this unit also as a keyboard. And this is a very key feature, as we are about to see, because you can basically customize any shortcut or even write scripts. The SSL UF8 sells for $1,000 plus VAT, and it comes with its own power supply and 2 USB cables, both USB-A and USB-C. It also has its own legs in case you want to raise it up and coming a little bit more at an angle at you. And there's also an optional rack kit, which allows you to basically rack in any 19 inches rack housing. The installation process is very straightforward, and thanks God SSL released a bunch of videos that allows you to quickly dive in and set up the control surface for your preferred DAW. In my case, as you guys know, we run Logic 99% of the times unless a client asks for Pro Tools, and it was a very straightforward. There were just a couple of things you had to tweak inside Logic preferences, but for the most part, it was a straightforward process. But if you really want to get deeper into it, I strongly suggest to watch the SSL tutorials because they're very straightforward and they give you all of the information you might need. Now, jumping straight into it, I can tell you that if you look at the unit itself, it sort of features, of course, the 8 flying faders. On top of each fader, there's, of course, the select button, the mute, and the solo for each track. On top of that, we have what they call the V-pot, which is a virtual pot, which by default, it's controlling the panning of your tracks. So it basically allows you to quickly have a reading at the panning position of all of the tracks you have in front of you. And of course, since it's a V-pot, you can turn it into anything else. I will show you more about that in a second. Above the actual V-pots, you will find the LED screen. So you can, without even looking at your DAW screen, you can quickly check what's the name of the track, what's the panning, what's the fader positioning, and more importantly, what's the actual volume coming out of that channel into your busing. So that's very, very cool. For instance, I'm not gonna name names, but there are a lot of other controllers out there that lacking either the metering function or the actual panning option for each of the flying faders. In this case, everything is in front of you, so nothing easier than this. As we said before, the V-pots default to the pan position, as you can see over here. So if I just turn the knob around, I'm actually messing up with the panning, the panorama of the track that I have in front of me. But all of these other different keys that we have on top of the screens themselves allow you to basically change the functionality of the V-pots themselves, basically flipping from the pan status to whatever you select. The very first coming up is the actual sends. So it's very, very nice to actually have the option to control the amount of sends into an aux send bus. Maybe think about it. It could be maybe the actual headphone mix for the musicians themselves. And you don't want to have to go and do it with the mouse. Now you just press send, and now I'm actually looking at all of the sends, the very first lots of sends of all of the tracks I have in front of me. Of course, I can bank tracks and see even the other tracks that I have throughout the whole session. With the use of the cursor keys down here, I can actually go and control different send slots. So I can go down with the arrow, and I'm controlling the send number 2, send number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, till basically you run out of sends. This is very, very handy. If I keep on pressing send, so if I press send a second time, now I'm actually into channel mode, which is a very different way of handling parameters. In fact, whenever I'm in channel mode, the first thing you will see is the actual light here will turn into channel, while before it was displaying the actual first slot of send. So if I press it again, now I'm actually in channel mode, which means whatever channel I have selected is going to show me information only of that channel, specifically to the sends, because that's what we're focusing on. In fact, what I see over here is, I can change with the very first vpot the actual bus, so destination of that bus. Okay, so how I do it, I just change it, press, and now it's been sent there. Over here on the second vpot, I of course have my level, and then on the third, I can switch in between a pre and post fader pan. I can mute it or not, and so on and so forth, okay? The other very cool feature that you can apply to any of these parameters, by the way, it's the flip function. Yeah, this is it's very common on any control surface out there, and it's still something that by itself, it's highly revered by us mixing engineers, because now, instead of having to trickle here with the little vpots, which sometimes are not ideal, I can flip these values to the fader's position. So now I can, with the press of a button, I'm now controlling the amount of sends with the actual faders. Again, keep in mind, let's say you're doing a mix for the artist, you're doing an headphone mix on bus 1. What better solution than just having it here in front of you, right? So you want to mute the click, there you go. You want to raise up whatever, the reverb return on the cans, that's how you do it. So very, very cool. And this can be done with any other parameter, with EQ, third-party plugins, but we're about to jump into that. So if I press flip again, I'm now basically back into, this is the volume control, so the actual fader position of that track, and up here I still have my vpots. So now that we had a deep look at the actual send functions, what else do we have here on the top keys? The next option we have up here, after send and instrument control, it's EQ. What's actually going to show you on the screen themselves is the high pass filter. So as you can see here, I have a 20 Hz high pass filter on the kick, overhead left and overhead right. Pretty straightforward. If I want to go deeper into the other parameters, of course, I can use, as before, the cursor keys here and move into different pages. Now I'm looking at what is the slope of that high pass filter, what's the actual Q factor of it, if I want to turn it on or off, and that's with just the first EQ selection. If I press EQ one more time, now it's actually opening up the plugin onto the actual screen that you might have in front of you, so the actual computer screen, and it starts to laying down on the different vpots a bunch of different parameters. So not only the high pass center frequency value, but high pass center frequency value, the slope of that, the Q of that, on or off. In this case it's off. As you can see, I can quickly turn it on and actually sweep it all the way around. I can turn it back off with the flip of a button, and that's great. Let's actually see what we have going on this EQ. Well, we do have, a fairly gentle notch. Well, I should say not so gentle, 4.5 dBs at 3000 Hertz. And right now I cannot really see that filter in my very first page here. So what I can do is actually use again the cursor keys till I actually end up being onto the actual page which represents all of the parameters, or in this case, the parameter we tweaked before. Now, this is something also cool that allows me to show you one extra feature. Let's say it's kind of difficult here to really zoom in. We were before the 3050, right? So how do I get there? There's a find button here. So if I press find, because now it will be, as you can see, a little bit difficult to really get to that 350. So what I do is I just press find, and now I should have a motor control. There we go. And now I have it there, and let's put it back as it was, which was, as we said, 4.5. Of course, this would work with any other third-party EQ as well, but that's when it gets really, really interesting. In fact, on top of these top keys, you also have a dedicated key which allows you to control any plugin, no matter what it is. So it can be an EQ, it can be a reverb, it can be a denoiser. It's really up to you. And that key is actually located here. So if I press plugin now, what it's showing me, it's what are the actual plugins, and we are in channel mode now onto this channel. Well, we have a channel EQ, and then we actually have a POOC child. If I want to control any of these plugins, it's as easy as just pressing on it, and there we go, back in. We are not using the EQ function controls, but we are using the plugin function controls. Let's say I want to control the POOC child. I press on there, and now it's opening up the plugin on your computer screen, and on top of it also laying down all of the parameters on your main screen. The other thing that I also like a lot about this unit here is they also have zoom features. So if I press the center button of the cursor keys, it turns my cursor keys into horizontal or vertical zooms. Okay, so that's pretty cool by itself. So this is, if you integrate this unit to do also these extra features, I'm sure it's gonna make a lot of sense as well. So all in all, very extensive controls of volume, pen position, sends, solo, cuts, and track selections, plus the ability to flip any of these controls down to the faders. You also have these, customizable soft keys. Now, each one of these units come with its own, as you can see, default DAW soft keys, but nothing is stopping you to customize it according to your workflow. So I am actually gonna demonstrate something pretty cool right now, which is, there are operations that I'm sure you guys do every single day. It might be renaming tracks, it might be creating XY amount of tracks, or open a session based on a template. You can do all of that with this because as I just told you before, your computer will look at this unit as a keyboard. So anything you can do with a keyboard, this thing can do it as well. Let me show you, for instance, something that I always do, no matter what, which is once I'm done with the mix, once I'm done and the client has approved the mix, of course I want to export it. What I would normally do, my go-to is, without even thinking, this is sort of muscle memory, I want to select all of the regions available in my arrange window and create a range so it can do a correct bounce in terms of extension. And then I also wanted to give the command B, which is bounce this track. So what I would do is Command A, U, create a cycle, and Command B, bounce this project. So let's see if we can actually program this with this SSL 360 degrees software. I'm just going to recall the 360 software with this button dedicated on the control surface. I'm going to go to a soft key which is definitely not being used, so soft key is 5. And I'm gonna tell him, hey, this is gonna be my bounce to disk stroke. And I'm gonna basically tell him it's not a DAW command or not only, I'm just gonna use a keyboard stroke, a keyboard command. And now this is basically the time to tell him he's gonna register whatever you type on your keyboard. Yeah, so this is not a good time to mess up with mistakes or any typos. So we said we want to select all of the tracks, we want to create a cycle around those tracks, and we want to bounce these projects. So Command A, U, Command B. If I close this and I go back to my DAW session and I just press soft key, bounce the disk, that's what's happening. So it has created basically sort of a script that allows me with one button to export the project, no matter what project it is. The goodness of this is that you can tell the control surface to stack a bunch of different keystrokes, so it does basically a script. Myself, to be honest, I'm gonna probably stick, at least for now, who knows in the future, I'm gonna stick with basically the use of this control surface to run fader automations or plugin automations, which is the very last part of our own conversation about this unit. In fact, the automation controls are laid down here on the left bottom of the unit itself. So as you can imagine, this is pretty much straightforward. It's basically representing all of the automation controls you will find in any DAW, so any track. So I can select a track, can be in off, read, write. I would say let's just try to do a quick volume automation on the actual vocals. says for control here. We are now in latch mode, so.
Sometimes I feel like I got a burning desire. Sometimes I feel like I'm going down.
You got the idea. Once we're done with that, of course, we can play back.
Sometimes
Pretty handy. So, what else to say about this unit? It doesn't come super cheap. Again, as I told you before, it's not the most affordable control surface out there. But the idea here is that you can basically, if you are working inside your DAWs, if you are an into-the-box guy, this is gonna save tons of time. And no matter what, it will allow you to be more precise in running volume automations, in making sure that you don't get distracted by the screen, but you're actually listening and looking at the faders while the mix is playing. So all in all, this is everything I wanted to share with you guys concerning the SSL UF8. As soon as it hit the market, I wanted to try it out, and to be honest, I'm very surprised with the quality and the sturdiness of the unit itself. So if you like the show, please don't forget to subscribe, to hit the notification bell, and until the next time.